Welcome to Football and Society, a new podcast exploring societal issues through the lens of the beautiful game. We'll be exploring topics including football in Turkey during the Erdogan regime, the history of the French national team, and the experiences of female officials in the UK. I'm Norman Riley, and I'm joined by Chris Shipman and Ashley McMullen. And today we'll be looking at the use of magic among football supporters. Watching football games being played behind closed doors lately has highlighted how important supporters are in creating that unique atmosphere on a match day. But have you ever thought of supporters as magicians? This is the view proposed by Katarzyna Herd in an article exploring the practice of magic among Swedish football supporters. The notion of magic referred to here is that described by the French sociologist Marcel Mauss, who defined magic as a means of creating a socially constructed space in which certain rites are performed to foster a collective belief in the power of these practices to influence events. Drawing on her experience attending games with the radical supporters of Malmö, Katarzyna argues that the core elements of magic that Mauss describes are present at matches. A key part of the magician's role is the ability to stage so-called abnormal behaviour, and in this respect, the most radical fans engage in behaviour considered taboo by other supporters. They engage in boisterous chanting, light flares, and display aggression towards the opposition, invoking the darker powers of magic. In order to sustain these performances, the supporters must believe in their own abilities, and herein lies the key difference between magic and religion. Unlike religious devotion to an all-powerful God, magicians have a firm belief in their own powers to influence outcomes. In this respect, supporters are critical of their own performance when results do not go their way, as they are convinced of the link between their behaviour and the team's success. We are delighted that Katarzyna Herd has joined us today to discuss her research with us. Katarzyna works in the Division of Ethnology at Lund University, Sweden, and as well as magic, has studied supporters' relationships with history. Katarzyna, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
So this is an incredibly intriguing topic. I've been following football since as long as I can remember, so a long time, 35 years or whatever. And I've never contemplated magic in football. Tell me, I guess, what made you decide to study this topic? What was the logic behind your thought process?
Yeah, I started being interested in football 2012. I got my work placement there. I studied a master program in applied cultural analysis, and you have to have 10 weeks of an internship, and no one really wanted me. There was we're not interested in students, and then I asked Malmö FF, would you like a project in cultural analysis? And then they basically said, if it's for free, yes. So that's how I started, and so I watched my first game September 2012, really. And I was very surprised. Well, not by the play itself. I mean, you can't get away from football nowadays. There's always something on TV. My dad watched Premier League and a bit of, Champions League and so on, of course. But the entire sort of structure surprised me. And so I'm sitting there, I'm with my friend. I can't talk to her because there's so much noise. Everyone is really pissed because Malmö didn't really play well. I can see that the quality on the pitch is really not fantastic. And then everyone was angry and disappointed. And then they pay to go again next week. Most likely to get disappointed and angry again. I'm like, what is this? And it's cold, it was windy, it's raining. Why? So I basically got really surprised and confused. So I tried to talk to people at the department, what is it? And some of the professors were like, oh, it's religion, communitas, we come together and we feel, but I'm born, raised Catholic. And I'm like, nah, this is not how it looks like in the church. I mean, there is some sort of respect, at least to someone. You don't go to the priest and go, oi, that was a wrong, thing you said. And you do it with with referees. It's like, what the fuck did you just did? I mean, it's completely different sort of dynamics. And then I got a suggestion of Marcel Mauss and magic. And I read the book and I absolutely loved it. And then I found out that there are other researchers who used it to sort of unpack modernity. And this entire idea that we've moved on as societies, especially Western societies, from the magical thinking, from the wishful thinking, but we have not. So there are fantastic articles how minority can control majority, for example, how you can make people believe that they are rejuvenated when being sort of very stressed in time, visiting a spa. You can have a very sort of packed schedule for entire 3 days, and somehow you made into believe that you relaxed. Mm-hmm. How do you make people believe that they relaxed? So there are a lot of those things in the society, and I thought, in a way, that was, for me, it was new and exciting, and it also kind of clicked. When the penny dropped for real was when I talked to this one person who worked for the club, but was also like old supporter, and we discussed players, and he got really angry with the players, and he said, like, are they just tools? It's like, no one worships them. I said, oh, that's exactly that. You don't worship anyone, you just use whatever you want. So that's where I landed.
Well, I tell you what, everything you said there about football fans and going to matches and paying to watch things that make them miserable, you've pretty much instigated an existential crisis in me right now, because it's a question that I ask on a regular basis. We'll just jump straight in. I'm going to take a quote straight from the article. Football is a state of confusion between an actor, rite, and an object. It's a brilliant observation. For me, it was a jaw-dropping moment, and I'd be really grateful if you could expand on it for our listeners.
This article is based on my master thesis, and basically the question in the master thesis was, what is football? We all take it for granted, but what is it, and why do we need it so much? And the thing is that when you're there, you realize that you don't really understand, or like it's very easy to sort of juggle with who's the enemy, who's the owner, who has the right to define what is going on. And it sort of fluctuates between the officials, and then you have the security, and then you have different groups of football supporters, and then you have, of course, the opposing teams that play, and then you have the press that controls quite a lot of how this process looks like and how we envision football, how we want football to be. So we have a lot of actors that have a lot of things to say about it, and they also compete with the understandings as well. And from this sort of mess, you still get a pretty good picture what football is. Like when we see football, we don't question it. Like you understand the premises, you understand how it's supposed to be. And if it is disrupted, then it's like, but it's strange. Like now we have no supporters on quite a lot of stadiums, and people say, and there are those slogans, and there are a lot of I've seen like supporters like posting things online that this is not football because we are not there. Yeah. But there is the other view saying that right now we have exactly what we should, football. Yeah. What matters now is the performance on the pitch, not what you do on the stands, not how security behaves, not how the club communicates to the supporters. None of that. All of a sudden we have the pure game, and yet people will say, but this is not it. So yeah, so the way the chaos is kind of written into the blueprint of how it's supposed to be. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Totally agreed.
Your focus was in fans in Sweden. Is there the same level of involvement? I'm not sure how much you've looked into, say, more corporate countries like England, where there's a lot of international success for teams. Do you think that it varies by country, the level of magic which supporters engage in?
I think the form is different, maybe, or like the expression, but I don't think the involvement would be much different. It's basically how you construct a narrative and how you support it. Because the Swedish fans, I mean, I have also some quotes, because some, this is the best we can have because we know the corporate business. And then some would say, but this is fake democracy. We have no voice. There are still, big money and play, and we need money. And supporters in a lot of countries are very pragmatic. Like you know that you need a nice arena. You need international talents to win titles. This is just obvious, and it's been so basically from the beginning. Like in the Swedish sources, you can read that. Well, they were supposed to be on amateur level. You were not supposed to buy and offer money, but you could offer them jobs. So, for example, Stockholm, there was one beautiful case when a little club, Degerfors, they had a very good striker, and all of a sudden, a club from Stockholm offers him a job as a postman, in the 50s. Yeah, so it's a fantastic job. So of course he goes to Stockholm and he plays for them. So you had that even back then. But I would say that you can basically. But because football is so, plastic, elastic, you can use it for so many things. So the expression changes. So like I do not know much about Polish football, for example. It's a bit scary when I look at it, but you see much more of a sort of trick with the national, with the core nationality, and sort of playing on that level, on club level. You can't see it in Sweden, really. That doesn't exist. You can see like Legia Warszawa, they are, for example, really good of, like, you know, there was this massive Jesus on the stands, like using of those elements. Can't see it in Sweden. Sort of purified from those elements.
And you suggest that football fans' behaviour could be interpreted to some degree as masochistic, and those of us that support particularly not very successful clubs, the three of us do, unfortunately, probably attest to this, and that disappointment to some degree is integral to their experience. And as integral to their experience as enjoyment. How important do you think suffering is in being attached to a team?
I think it makes things almost easier to be a supporter and sort of experience this bond with your club. I've become a supporter, like I've become my own experiment, you can say, because I thought I wouldn't, but then now I am really. And the club I support is well, they can't claim that much. It's really not that great, although they would like to see like this, oh, we are so fantastic. I actually heard the phrase that they are like the paranoid princess, like, I'm so great and no one cares. It kind of speaks to me. But the thing is that what you can see in football, it's a lot of those like myth making. And when you have one of the strongest myths is the hero's quest. To reach something, to achieve something, you have to go through trials. You have to suffer. You have to go through this sort of almost like a rite of passage, and you know, and experience different things. And when you build a relationship with anything, with a person, with a pet, I mean, you have to go the up and down, and that sort of strengthens the connection. And with the hero's quest, like, I mean, what do we cheer the most when we have this small clubs that are sort of struggling ever, but all of a sudden there's this bright moment. Everyone's like, yes, they managed. We have not, you know, given up on you. We had belief. We stood by you, and now we can have this, you know. And this celebration means more than celebrating almost like year after year after year. Like Malmö FF now, they are the winners. That's the idea. That's the, or like it has kind of developed to be the identity. There is very few to very little to land on. There is no cushion. There is no protection if it goes bad. With other clubs, it's almost the other way around. It's like, oh, what happened? We are okay. Like, you know, we top 5. Woohoo! So it's a different sort of thing. And I've heard it and I experienced that. And I was very confused when I experienced that. And people say like, struggle at the bottom is almost like more intense than at the top. Because you're really fighting for your life, because it's really, and this sort of triggers emotions and this triggering of emotions is of course addictive. That's why people do different things. That's why you want to go to concerts, as you become sort of affectively involved. And the thing with football is that's a perfect arena to invest your emotions. This is the currency that everyone wants us to pay with now, because the money, well, no, you need a banker, you need an investor, you need oil money, or you need Chinese money, something like that nowadays. But what, let's say, the whole business of it wants from the supporters: show your emotion, invest your emotion. And if you have the possibility to invest both the positive, negative emotions, that's even like a double investment. And hence supporters, for example, in Sweden react so strongly when the big money talk comes up. They don't want to feel all the time that someone is making profit on their emotions. No one wants that. People want to know that there is something else in it, not just the pure profit.
Who's your team, by the way?
It's IKEA Stockholm.
Oh, yeah. So IKEA, right? Is that IKEA Stockholm? Yeah.
And it's people basically go very surprised why. And it's I don't know. I have when I was writing my PhD, I kind of ended up hanging around with them a lot, because my idea was history and producing history, using history. And the thing with them was that, well, they have not won anything for a very long time. So what they had to do was to dig quite a lot into history to find something positive. they lost the arena, a goalkeeper died, they were like really like mid-range best, they were losing. And so, you know, they were very, very creative in creating the images or something, having some sort of characters and references to the history to sort of keep it up. And they've been very good at this, actually. So I somehow, I don't know, I got attached, you can say. Yeah.
With the Malmö fans, were there ever moments where you felt that people were just bored or tired of it? And if they were, how did they kind of overcome that?
Yeah, that does happen. But it's also like people point out that it really depends on your personal story. Like you can sort of pause this involvement if something happens. And one person said, like, you know, it's been my life. Then my dad got cancer. And like, so there is the hierarchy, and that's also a strength of football, that you don't exactly need to have an entire 100% focus, and you won't be punished, even though supporters sometimes point out that there is a hierarchy, like, are you a couch potato or are you coming to the stadium? But on the larger scale, there is no one way to be a supporter. So I once talked to a person who, I mean, people kind of said, okay, he's a supporter of this team, if you want to talk to such a supporter. I was like, yeah, okay. And we chat, and then I asked, how often do you see matches? And he said, I haven't seen anything in 10 years. Well, excuse me, are you a supporter? He was a supporter. And then I thought, who am I to judge? I mean, what he gives me is a bit of an alternative story how to be a supporter. And he had very interesting insights. And for example, he was very critical of the idea that someone could buy a Swedish club or his clubs. Like, they would lose their soul. At the same time, he loved games in London. He went to see Chelsea, he went to see Arsenal. He thought it was like beautiful atmosphere, so safe, so family friendly, like, you know, the arena, comfort of it, perfect, but not in Sweden. It's perfect over there. So people, I think when you try, it also depends how your club performs. So you can have this up and down. And in a way, normal reaction, I think, would be if the product is not up to the standard, that you kind of like, okay, do something, fix it. I'm not doing that. And for example, this year, IKEA, my club, they went down like hell. It was like, oh my God, it's the bottom line. It's like, so soon soon the relegation is kind of coming. And then came reports that they misplaced money, that there was some maybe idea of a fraud that was like not massively serious, but still on that scale, in the Swedish scale. And what do supporters do? I thought first everyone would like, okay, we just pause it. We don't want to hear anything unless you fix it. And supporters go, no, folk, listen, very quickly, we need to, like, you know, get together like 1 million Swedish crowns so we can maybe give up to them so they can buy someone so we can start playing again. And that's what they did. They opened this sort of almost like GoFundMe, and people got 1 million Swedish crowns. And then the club actually, bought, and then with some wealthier supporters, they did buy some players, and it was like, oh, finally, let us go up the line. So it's, in a way, you can say that the crisis should have been played in a completely different level if we think about economics and maths and you know, that's just regular thinking. But there it was like almost illogical, but it was like, oh my God, we rescued them. And again, you have the magic of that. We managed to help them. We keep them afloat, even though this is like, I don't know, I think I swished like 10 pounds, yeah? But, you know, everyone does it. And yeah, we have it. It's, oh, God, yes, we survived. We finished like 10th. So it's like, oh.
You also mentioned the use of darker magic by fans, such as flares and abusive songs. And it got us thinking really of the contradictions inherent among football fans. As you say, the fans love their club, yet sometimes engage in behaviour that sees the club actually punished by the authorities. What's the purpose of this kind of magic that carries quite a big risk with it?
Well, I was kind of asked, I had a presentation at Malmö FF, and they were kind of discussing the ultras because it was still kind of a new thing. And I was like, how they care about the club. And then I look at them and I say, but don't you see, they come here to celebrate themselves. And then the entire board kind of bought my idea. It's like, okay, all of a sudden they got it, because you see, it is the identity of the club, but at the same time, when you're in such a group and you can size a bit of power, and know how to wield this power, then like, whoa, this works on you. So, but at the same time, there is still in Sweden a lot of, how should I say, there is this narrative that, well, the football is not up to the European standard, but we are up to the European standard. And what is the European scene? Right now, the dominant is the Southern Italian sort of Greek Balkan, the flares, the chants, the tifos, the displays. That is now the standard sort of. So they are rewarded in a way because the international community, like pages like Ultras Tifonet, for example, like you can follow them on Facebook. They do this, like, like, okay, now it's like this on this day 2017 now, because now it's nothing happening, but yeah, like, Derby of Stockholm or Malmö FF against, I don't know, Galatasaray or something. So it's like the best tifos of last week. So they are shown internationally. They are criticized or rewarded. So that there is an additional level of play, of course. And at the same time, I would hear supporters say, yeah, but you can say that they pay some fines, but they generate money. Think about the publicity, and some people really come, and they are interested to see what the ultras are going to do. And actually, like Newcastle and so on, how is that of a standard? But for example, you have Stockholm Derby and they start doing flares. No one cares what's happening on the pitch. Everyone's, taking the phone and just photographing them. And you can see this, all the cameras, they love it. That's what we're supposed to do, and then clip it nicely. So they do understand that they kind of, if not value, so they add some sort of level of discussion. And they also able to even engage in national discussion or security discussion. Like the discussions with police are now massive, and people are basically preparing themselves for what's going to happen next year, because 2019 was very critical, and it was amazing how fans from different clubs could unite with this chant, "Cop bastards, the murderers of football." So one side would shout that, and then the away fans would chant the other half of the chant, and that would go in 10-15 minutes really, really loudly, with the poor police standing next and listening.
That's really interesting. It ties into what you said in the article about Swedish general society being adherence to rules, driving at the right speed. I think one person said sometimes we do it, sometimes we even stop at green lights, and then you have this complete contrast in the football stadium where it's almost like all of this built-up tension because you're following rules all the time just absolutely explodes in that sort of 2 hours that you're in the stadium. It's really fascinating, because obviously my impression of Swedish society is very much a highly organized, really kind of straightforward society. So it's interesting. I'll have to go onto Fuzzynet and look at the Malmö fans doing what they do.
Yeah, I mean, but in cultural sciences there is this saying, you can say, or like folklorists love it the most, like you have to have carnival somewhere. You have to have a space and place where everything is upside down, when you can just you can crown the king, you can kill the king. And somehow this evolved to be football in, for example, Sweden. So you're right, the level of engagement is absolutely unbelievable, and I've never been hugged and kissed so many times than at the football stadium. Yeah. And for both, the tears, because over there it's okay to hug your mates, to cry, to shake with fear. No one's gonna criticize you for that. So you can kind of I had this little article that you can sort of think that this is almost a playground now it comes to gender. Not because quite often, you can see that it's this old-fashioned masculinity or toxic masculinity. Sure, there is, but there are a lot of other masculinities in play, and same with femininity. Because I've read some articles, especially from Britain, that sort of criticize female supporters that you don't do enough to make it nice and cozy and safe for children. It's like, hang on a minute. Maybe I want to scream at the referee and experience that as well. Like, don't deny me that if I, don't categorize me in my femininity. So the trespassing cannot sort of go both ways. And this is also kind of like sort of the shape shifting. I can actually do that over there.
linked to that, I just wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit more. I just wondered what your thoughts are on the notion that sport and elite football in particular offer a safe space to indulge in conflict and aggression in particular, activities that in previous eras and previous times would have been satisfied only through participation in actual violence.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know if I necessarily agree. It sounds a bit like what's his called, Elias, that the civilization process, that we become less and less, maybe not prone to violence, but we don't accept straightforward violence. So there is a lot of sort of symbolic expressions of that nowadays, you can say. Yeah, but at the same time, in my thesis, I kind of discussed hate in a way. And there are several like other researchers who kind of work with it, because, well, you can't say that this is like a positive emotion. Yeah, I mean, it's not really that, but it also has a purpose and a meaning, and it depends on the context. So even the phrase "I hate you," maybe it doesn't have to be, maybe not like it's positive, but it can be a catalyst to something very, very creative. And you can see that too. And I think in football, you learn quite well how to handle your emotions and how to handle those, because you're trying to do that in a way, like, all the disappointments and pains and, and struggles, you kind of know how to do that after a while. At first, of course, it's a shock. That's why it's this sort of heterotopic space, because it's a special place with special rules. You have to learn how to navigate, how to react, how to do that. And I've been thinking about it, like with all the hooligans and stuff. And even though it's not a massive problem in Sweden, of course it is an issue. We it's not like out of sight. It is out of sight, out of mind. But the problems do exist. And again, football kind of became an arena that you can express it, but only because I think it is in a society. It doesn't mean that the football is violent or racist by itself, but it lets this kind of steam go out. Then it might be something different later on. And then even violence, I mean, even if you talk to the police, I interviewed some policemen in Sweden, and they talk about violence capital, or the capital of violence, that even they understand. This one was really very interesting person, and he said, like, okay, I don't understand the kick of it, but I know that if you're young, you don't have that much to lose, and what you gain is something that is of value to you. So, like, you get a group, you get respect, you get some sort of identity connected to that. So you fight in the forest, fine. It's like, if you bring this to the stadium, then I have a problem with you. And then during that situation, because we talked during a match, and there was a supporter passing with a little girl, and they like, hey, hello, good match, yes, we're winning. And then he passes, and then he goes, look here, he's a hooligan. We met before in forests, but today he's with his little girl. How am I supposed to treat him now? They know each other. I was like, oh, fantastic, but of course, but now he's not doing anything. So it is a very interesting sort of way you can observe those things, but it's a very intriguing point how we sort of stopped, or like we don't want to see value in conflict, in open conflict. And I'm not saying this is a good thing, but we can't ignore that it's gonna happen. It's not gonna disappear. It's gonna just take a different form. So it really depends how you want it, or how the society would prefer it to be. But if it's not become physical, could it be that it become more psychological? I don't know.
No, but yeah, just let people go in the forest and fight each other. I think that's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
You've got a lot of forest too, so.
That, of course, Norman, is on the assumption that people can actually meet up, and we are, of course, in a pandemic, and that links very nicely to what I was about to ask. So thank you very much. Given the fact that, of course, fans can't get into stadiums at the moment and consume and engage with football in the way that they ordinarily would, what are your thoughts on how COVID and games behind closed doors have affected the magic that is present at matches?
Well, it's become different, but at the same time, there's been a lot of creativity on different levels. Like an example, and just before the COVID completely took over, I actually managed to be in Rome in February. Yes, I was like the last days of freedom, really.
Last days of Rome.
Yeah. And over there, I found a lot of stickers in the colors of Aceroma, and it said Corona virus. It's like coronavirus, yeah. And they were beautiful. And I thought, man, how quickly you can do that. And you can create this insult that is not only sort of punching Aceroma, but it's also bringing the history and the virus that was there then, still like over there in Asia. It was just kind of funny. It was so many memes and everything. It was we kind of laughed. Then we stopped laughing. We're not laughing anymore. But that was kind of like the first sort of symptomatic thing that something's gonna change. And at least in Sweden, there's been a lot of different ways to support the club and sort of mark that we are still supporters. So people organized like the clubs would organize lunches for medical personnel. And for some reason, it had to be marked that this is this club, not like, just people. No, the club is, preparing them. Or you could go to fictive buses. So I sat in fictive buses to different cities, and you just swish like set amount. It was really usually very cheap, like £5 or something, and then we donate the money to the club, yeah. Or like the clubs were doing also like very interesting new like designs and shirts, like that was going on as well. So a lot of those activities came up, like how can we be still active as supporters? You probably saw reports from different countries that supporters came to help to like move a hospital or build an extension of a hospital, something like that. And again, they sort of become a social group, like not young people from this part of town. No, they have a name, they have a supporters, they are supporters of that team, which is also interesting. So that has happened a lot, I would say. Those sort of activities that still trying to build this identity on this sort of like, how can we help? What can we do? How can we be creative? People who would create the displays, the banners, would sit and make like masks and or like protective gear for hospitals and stuff. Again, sort of photographing it, putting it online, having this digital footprint that it is a club that's done it.
The fictive bus, was that getting on a bus and going to another city? On the bus? Yeah, but it's sort of like, it's sort of a make-believe. I mean, like this week we play in Göteborg, in Gothenburg. So you swish 50 crowns. Yeah, so like more or less £5, I would say. And you on the bus. Oh, yeah? Right. So it's not like you're actually getting on the bus, because not like in Hong Kong where those flights that would take off and then like land again. Do you know about that?
No.
Yeah. See, you're not getting on a bus, drinking loads of beer, and then just driving back to the bus stop. Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah. Cool. You kind of alluded to digital spaces in your answer there, and you refer to activity on the internet. Does magic operate in the same way in virtual spaces, or does the dynamic change due to the context?
I think it depends. It depends a little bit on scale. Yeah, I mean, but the digital footprint has become very, very important. Little digression to going back, because there is one student, a bachelor student, who writes about like the lost spaces of football. He's like at our department, and he found this football club in Sweden, and there's like an old-fashioned stadium, or like it's maybe not old-fashioned, but it's kind of low. Mm-hmm. So they all just bought like, what was it called? Ladders. Yes, they supporters get ladders, and they sat on the ladders watching football, like around the stadium. He has fantastic pictures from that. It's like, no, this is how we support now. And one of them even said, "This is brilliant. I don't even have to go inside." Like, I'm kind of satisfied because with his kind of creativity, and also they managed to see matches. And so you see that there's been things happening. But about the virtual, I think that's where it all gained speed. For example, with ultras groups, when they found a way to sort of connect to each other. And one person, it was a British scholar who kind of commented on my research, saying that it seems that football is like medieval monasteries. You have the local and you have the global, but somehow you skip the national. So the links exist like beyond borders, and internet is everything about that, is beyond borders. So you can see what they do in Indonesia. They can see what they do in Morocco, how Algeria's fans, react on what they do. And you can comment, apply, and do the same. So it's sort of another level of being conscious of that your performance is gonna be sort of visible somewhere else. And also they can keep different things alive through that as well. So when IKEA's goalkeeper died, Ivan Turina, it was like a sort of massive shock, but then they don't want to sort of bury the person. They want to keep it alive. So every match there is, or there used to be at least, like 1 minute sort of commemoration to him when they shout his name. And it sort of became almost an obsession that to keep this alive. And some people say that, we need to keep it alive because things change so quickly and they disappear and new players come and there is new trauma, there is new drama, there's so much to take in. So there is a group that travels to his grave every year to Croatia, and they decorate it in scarves of IKEA. And he played there only like for 3 years. It wasn't like massive, icon. Yeah. And then they photograph it and they put it online. And that's the important bit, and this person said that, because the rest knows that we take part of that tradition, that this is taken care of. They can sort of chill and do some other things, because in this sort of massive web of what a football can be, what you can do with that, we take care of that. And that's with the help of internet, of course. And I would say that there is this almost a tradition of people who watch matches on TV and then they comment live on like chats or like chat rooms. And this is one of the best things I've ever seen. Like I have so many dumb screams from that. I was like, amazing. And you think this is not enough to just watch. You also have to kind of write there in capital letters, like screw you referee, or run for fuck's sake, or something like that. And that also allows you the connection and lets you participate in this emotional exchange in a different level. Although I think it's very tiring to sort of watch and then type at the same time, but people do that.
It's really interesting you say that, because what I've come to learn during the whole pandemic whilst watching football is obviously watching Newcastle matches, not being in the stadium but watching them from home, but not being able to go to the pub, even to watch them in the pub with friends, to actually have to be atomized watching the game. But at the same time I'm watching it, and Chris, who's on the call here, he is the same. All of us in this group are messaging each other during the match. And it's a way of being at the match with each other, but at the same time, I'm actually probably missing about 40 minutes of the football because I'm busy kind of chatting with other people about it. It's a totally different experience. But the messages that I put in there's definitely no magic coming from those. They're just really bad, observations.
But even during a match, I was sometimes amazed how easy it is to completely miss a goal or like something. I mean, sometimes because Swedish fans, I like the standing section, and actually I also like very much the away section. So I live close to Malmö, so I'm quite often with different away teams because that's like the most like sensitive area. But the flags waving, or someone's doing something, then all of a sudden there's a beer coming down on you, and like it's like so many distractions. And it's like, oh, a goal, all right. I was like, that happens so many times. So it's like, to be able to follow everything, you can't really.
It's carnage, and that's what the fun is, right? That's the fun part of it.
You mention in the article that the liminal elements of the stadium grounds point out to Foucault's concept of heterotopia. Could you talk us through this? Because listeners may be unfamiliar with Michel Foucault or the concept of heterotopia. So could you explain that to them?
Not in this country, by the way. I don't know if you're
politicians know.
I don't know if you're aware, Cassia, of one of our politicians coming out and referencing Foucault completely incorrectly lately.
All right, no,
haven't. Well, I'll send you a link to an article once we finish this podcast. Go back to the question, but you'll find it quite funny, I think.
Yeah. Right. I mean, Foucault. I guess Michel Foucault is most known for his work on power and control, and also the sexuality, and his very famous, maybe not quote, but sort of assumption, or that the way to control society, the easiest way is to control the sexual behavior. You control that, you have people in line, you can say. But I found this very short and very beautiful article of his about heterotopia. And it's sort of, he kind of pointed out basically that logic does not work everywhere on the same basis. Basically, you more or less you have like clusters of places in the society that kind of tweak with the idea what is good, what is bad, what is acceptable, what is frowned upon, and so on. And those places have this system of opening and closing themselves. Like they operate in a special time and space, and you have to know how to open them. On the graveyard, when you bury a person, that's, you can say, when the graveyard works. That's when it's used, and you have a special right to do that. And then, well, there is a graveyard, but it does not operate. You don't like continuously sort of bury people, but maybe now with pandemic. And also like a ship, that's a heterotopia, because you have, again, a special set of rules. You have the same humans sort of traveling from Britain to the US on the ship, but you have a captain, you have a different hierarchy, you have a way of doing stuff. One can say that in a way, army is a sort of heterotopia as well. It functions because it has special logic that you have to follow. If you break with that, the magic is gone. You can't say, can we discuss this order you've just given us? No, you have to follow. You have to know how to do that. And you can see that in football in many levels. Like for the first, there is a permission to say things that you would not be able to say, for example, to a policeman, or like, shout at them. I really like this chant used in British football, like, we paid for your hats, we paid for your hats, yeah? But like, if you would be doing that on the street, that would be a bit, that would be a different thing. Or you would immediately think, this is a football crowd. That you would sort of apply the understanding that the zone, the liminal, the heterotopia is still happening. There is this video about, like, with people dancing to this chant of Yaya Toure, like it's like a subway. There are two sides of it, and you can see that some people are just staring at them. But if you understand this is a football crowd, that makes sense. That's logical. That's what you do. So you can sort of transplant it if you wish to. And also the heterotopia means that you can construct a way that you can structure the behavior in a bit different way. For example, you don't question the police, or you understand that that you can get angry or emotional or screaming because a round ball goes into a goal. Whereas when you think like in a normal life, if you see a ball rolling into a goal on the street. So you need to have this sort of space that has those rules, and you have to learn how to operate on those rules, really. If you start a new job, you kind of have to learn how to greet people, when is the coffee break, what can I bring a dog or not, how to copy, because it's also sort of coded behavior that are sort of micro behaviors that you have to be able to unpack and adjust how to do that.
Yeah, you can't just go into the office and start doing the Ayatoria dance, can you, on your first day?
Sounds like you're a man that's tried something like that once or twice, Norman.
Maybe.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much, Cassia. Where can listeners hear more from you or read more of your work? How can they contact you?
We all have official sort of pages, like at the university. So if you Google me, you'll probably get my name. And we've been really good with open access articles, I think. So there's a lot that is open access. And my thesis, it's so beautiful. It's also online, all the PhD dissertations, open access online in Sweden. So I'm happy to talk football. I like it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I think all that remains for me to do is thank you very much for your time, and also to Ash and Norman as well. It's been a really fascinating discussion. Speak to you soon.